I keep a barometer by my back door, the kind with a brass needle that never lies about whether the way people lie about themselves. That's where I was standing the night everything changed. Not doing anything important, just watching a storm roll east over Pickens County. Coffee going lukewarm in my hand. Some habits don't retire when a man does. 31 years as a U.S. Marshal teaches you to notice things. The exact minute a call comes in, the tone underneath somebody's voice when they say they're fine. I carried that habit home with me the way other men carry a limp. My daughter Claire calls that habit dad being dad. I call it staying useful. Maggie used to say the same thing, though she said it kinder. My wife had been gone 6 years by then, but the porch light was still burning every evening, same as she'd asked me to keep it. Leave it on, she used to tell me. You never know who needs to find their way home. I never once turned it off. Not the night she died, not the night of the funeral, not any night since. Claire had been dating a man named Derek Voss for a little over a year. I'd met him maybe 4 times. Clean haircut, good manners at the dinner table, the kind of smile that looked rehearsed if you caught it at the wrong angle. He brought flowers the first time he came to the house. Remembered that I took my coffee black. Called me sir without being asked to. I didn't dislike him. That's the part people forget to mention about men like Derek. You don't dislike them right away. That's not how it works. Claire lit up different when she talked about him in the beginning. Told me he noticed things nobody else noticed. Remembered her coffee order after one date. Sent her a photo of the sunset because it reminded him of something she'd said in passing. He listens, Dad, she told me once, sitting right there at my kitchen table. Really listens. I remember thinking that was a good thing. I didn't know yet that listening and studying can look the same from across a dinner table. That same evening, before she left, she showed me a necklace he'd given her for her birthday. Thin silver chain, small round pendant. Simple, not showy. She held it up to the kitchen light and smiled like a woman who believed her life was headed somewhere good. It's beautiful, I told her. He said it reminded him of the porch light, she said. Said it was the kind of thing that finds you home. I didn't think much of that line at the time. I think about it constantly now. That was the last ordinary spring I remember having with my daughter. Before the calls that came late at night. Before the messages. Before I understood that a man can build a cage one compliment at a time, and the person inside it will thank him for the walls. I want to tell you how this started. Not the ending. I want you to understand the beginning first, because if you don't understand how good Derek Voss was at being good, you'll never understand how bad it got, or why it took my daughter so long to see it. So let me back up. Let me start with the porch light, the way I always do. What I didn't know yet was how far back this pattern of his actually went. Derek had a way of making himself necessary. Not obviously. Not all at once. He started small. Showing up at Claire's classroom with lunch on days she forgot hers. Remembering the anniversary of her mother's passing without being told twice. He just gets it, she told me that June, sitting on my porch steps with her knees pulled up, watching the fireflies start over the yard. Nobody's ever gotten it like that before. I was glad for her. I want that understood clearly. I wasn't a suspicious father lying in wait for a reason to dislike the man dating my daughter. I liked him fine. My brother Frank liked him fine too, the one time they met over burgers at my place. Polite kid, Frank said afterward, working on a rack of ribs like it owed him money. Little too polished for my taste, but polite. By July, Derek was at my house most Sundays. Helped me clear gutters once without being asked. Sat with me on the porch and talked about nothing in particular. Baseball, whether an old truck he was fixing up. He asked me about my years as a marshal, and unlike most people, he didn't ask about the exciting parts. He asked about the waiting, the patience, the long stretches where nothing happens until suddenly everything does. That's the real job, isn't it, he said, knowing when to hold still. I remember thinking that was a smart thing to say. I didn't understand yet that he'd learned to hold still too, just for different reasons than I had. The soft moment I keep coming back to happen in August. Claire had a bad week. Her car broke down, a difficult parent at the school where she taught chased her stress up half a flight, and on top of it she came down with a summer cold that knocked her flat for 3 days. Derek showed up every evening that week with soup from the place on Wade Hampton she liked. Sat with her while she slept off the fever, and left before it got late, so nothing got said about propriety. He didn't ask for anything, she told me after. He just showed up. I believed her. I still believed that part of it was real. That's what made it work. The truth stitched right through the middle of the lie. A man who is only cruel gets caught early. A man who is sometimes genuinely, remarkably kind can keep you waiting years for the other shoe. It was around that same time I noticed the first small thing that didn't sit right. Claire mentioned, almost as a joke, that Derek liked to know where she was in the evenings. Just so he doesn't worry, she said, laughing it off. He's sweet like that. I let it go. I want to be honest about that. I didn't chase it, didn't ask a follow-up question, didn't do what 31 years of training should have made automatic. I told myself it was nothing. I was wrong about how nothing it was. I just didn't know it yet. The first time something fell off, I couldn't have told you exactly why. It was a Tuesday in October, the kind where the heat kicks on twice before 6 and the windows stay dark till almost 7. Claire had come by to drop off a casserole dish she'd borrowed for a school potluck. Her phone buzzed 4 times while she stood in my kitchen. She didn't answer any of them, just glanced down each time, thumb hovering, then put it back in her pocket without a word. Everything all right? I asked. Fine, she said. Just Derek. He worries if I don't check in. I nodded like that made sense. At the time, it did. The 5th buzz came as she was leaving. She read it standing in my doorway, and something crossed her face I didn't have a name for yet. Smaller than fear. The look of someone doing quick math in their head. I should go, she said. He's probably wondering where I am. You were at your father's house, I said. That's not exactly a crime scene. She laughed, but it came out thin. You know how he gets. I didn't know how he got. That was the problem. A week later, my brother Frank mentioned something over coffee that I turned over in my mind longer than I let on. Saw Claire at the Ingalls on Wade Hampton Saturday, he said. Derek was with her. Man about lost his mind over her buying a $14 bottle of wine. Not yelling or nothing. Just had a look on him. Asked her real quiet why she needed wine when there was a bottle at home already. She put it back. I remember thinking that was strange, the specificity of it. But strange isn't the same as wrong. And I'd learned a long time ago not to build a case out of one grocery store aisle. You know that feeling when you've been patient so long that patience itself starts to feel like a mistake. I didn't have that feeling yet. Not in October. I was still at the stage where every explanation Claire offered sounded reasonable, because I wanted it to. The third thing happened at Thanksgiving. Claire's phone died around 4 o'clock, and when I couldn't find a charger that fit, she asked to use my landline. I just need to let Derek know where I am, she said. He worries when I go dark. Goes dark. I remember that phrase specifically because it wasn't the kind of thing a 29-year-old normally says about her own phone battery. It was the kind of phrase somebody else had taught her, the way you teach a child to say please and thank you. I need to tell you about the gas station before I tell you about the phone call, because by the time that phone rang on a rainy Thursday, this had already been building for months, one small brick at a time. Frank called me on a Sunday in January, his voice doing that thing it does when he's decided something matters more than he wants to admit. I need to tell you what I saw, he said, and I need you to not do anything stupid about it yet. He'd stopped for gas on Route 123 and seen Claire's car at the pump across from him. Derek was standing at the driver's side window, not filling the tank, just standing there, talking, one hand braced on the roof of her car. Wasn't yelling, Frank said, but Claire had that look. Same one she gets when she was little and thought she was in trouble for something she didn't do yet. Caught the tail end when I walked past to pay. He was telling her she didn't need to be friends with somebody named Renee anymore. Said Renee was, and I quote, not a good influence right now. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone a while before I answered. Who's Renee? Don't know. Never heard the name before either. Neither had I, and that bothered me more than the conversation itself. I called Claire that evening, careful about how I framed it. Frank mentioned running into you and Derek at the gas station, I said. Said he heard something about a friend of yours. Renee, silence on the line, long enough that I almost said her name again. She's nobody, Dad. Just somebody from my old book club. We drifted. Derek didn't want you seeing her. It's not like that. Her voice had an edge now, quick and defensive. Renee was going through a rough patch, drinking a lot. Derek just thought it wasn't the healthiest thing for me to be around right now. That's all. He worries. He worries. I was hearing that phrase constantly by then, and each time it did a little more work than the time before. Explaining away a locked phone, a returned bottle of wine, a friendship folded quietly and put away. I didn't push further that night. I told myself I was respecting her boundaries as an adult woman capable of making her own decisions. And there's truth in that. But there's another truth sitting right alongside it, one I've had a long time to sit with since. I was scared of what pushing might cost me. Scared that if I pressed too hard, she'd pull back from me the way she'd apparently pulled back from Renee, and I'd lose the thread of my own daughter's life one careful, well-reasoned explanation at a time. That's the trap nobody warns you about. Not the villain himself. The slow education in accepting his version of events, one reasonable-sounding sentence at a time, until you're standing in your own kitchen defending a stranger's decisions about who your daughter is allowed to love. But February was coming, and February was when things started, for a little while, to look like they were getting better. I want to tell you about the good months, because if I skip them, none of what came after will make sense. From February through early April, Derek became, by every visible measure, the best version of himself I'd seen yet. He took Claire to Asheville for her birthday and came back with pictures of the two of them at some overlook, her laughing with her head thrown back in a way I hadn't seen since before her mother died. He started coming to my place on his own, without Claire, just to help with things. Replaced a rotted board on my porch steps without being asked. Sat with me one Saturday afternoon while I went through Maggie's old gardening tools, deciding what to keep and what to finally let go of, and he didn't fill the silence with anything. Just sat there. Let it be quiet. You loved her a long time, he said at one point, nodding toward a framed photo of Maggie on my mantel. 41 years. That's the kind of thing I want, he said. Somebody who stays. I remember believing him completely in that moment. I've turned that memory over more times than I can count since, trying to find the scene where the performance started and the man ended, and I still can't find it clean. That's the truth about people like Derek. The kindness isn't always fake. Sometimes it's just selective, deployed exactly when it's needed and withdrawn exactly when it isn't. Claire bloomed that season. She started sleeping better, she told me. Said Derek had started leaving her phone alone in the evenings, said things had eased up since the conversation about Renee. He's been really good lately, Dad. I think we're past whatever that was. I wanted so badly for that to be true. In March, Derek proposed a trip, the two of them and me, a long weekend up at a cabin near Table Rock. Frank came too, grumbling the whole 4-hour drive, but even he softened by the second night, sitting around a fire pit while Derek told stories about growing up outside Spartanburg, about a father who'd been hard on him, about learning young that love had to be earned through vigilance. You keep the people you love close, he said that night, staring into the fire. You don't take chances with something that matters. At the time, it sounded like devotion. It took me months afterward to understand it as something closer to a mission statement. Claire wore that silver necklace the whole trip. I watched my daughter laugh with her whole chest for the first time in what felt like years, and I let myself believe, fully and without reservation, that whatever unease I'd carried through the fall and winter had simply been an old lawman's habit of looking for trouble where none existed. I let my guard down completely that weekend. I want that on the record, because everything after makes more sense once you understand how far down my guard actually went. By April, Derek was talking about a ring. He brought it up one Sunday while we were fixing a leak under my kitchen sink, working shoulder to shoulder in that particular quiet men fall into when their hands are busy and their mouths don't have to be. I want to do this right, he said. I want Claire to know she's the last thing I'm ever going to build toward. I remember the exact words because I've replayed them so many times since, hunting for the crack in them and never quite finding one. It's possible he believed every word when he said it. That's the part that still unsettles me most. That same Sunday, Claire came by for dinner, and something about her had changed in a way I couldn't name yet. She laughed at Frank's jokes a beat too late. Like she was checking first whether laughing was the right response. She kept her phone face down on the table, which she'd never done before. "You good, sweetheart?" I asked, walking her to her car after. "I'm great, Dad." She smiled, and it looked real enough that I let it be real. Things are really good right now. She hugged me longer than usual before she got in her car that night. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I think about it constantly now. Love you, Dad, she said. Keep the light on. Always do, I told her. I had 3 weeks left of believing that. What I found out that night took less than 30 minutes to happen and years to fully understand. The phone rang at exactly 10:47 on a rainy Thursday in late April. I remember the time because I just checked the old barometer by my back door. Rain tapped steady against the metal roof, and the porch light threw its usual warm circle across the wet steps. I almost let go to voicemail. Claire hardly ever called that late. When I answered, all I heard at first was breathing, then a whisper, "Dad." Something in her voice put every hair on my neck up at once. "I left him," she said. I didn't answer right away. 31 years of this kind of work teaches you that silence gives a frightened person room to breathe. Then another sound came through, a loud bang. Someone pounding on a door. "Claire," I said quietly. She told me she was locked inside a gas station restroom off Route 123. Her voice hovered right at the edge of tears. "He's outside." Another bang. A man's voice came through, muffled but close. "Come on, stop being dramatic, Claire." I'd only crossed paths with Derek a handful of times, but something about that voice, flattened out through a bathroom door at 11 at night, sounded nothing like the man who'd fixed my porch step or sat quiet with me over Maggie's old gardening tools. "Listen to me," I said, keeping my voice level though my heart was hammering hard enough to feel in my throat. "Keep the phone against your ear. I'm coming." I grabbed my keys off the table by the porch swing. As I backed out of the driveway, I glanced at the empty, rocking chair beside mine. The porch light stayed on behind me, same as it had every night for 6 years. Leave it burning. You never know who needs to find their way home. I pressed harder on the gas. Claire stayed on the phone through most of the 27-minute drive. Long stretches passed where neither of us said anything at all. I could hear Derek moving around outside that bathroom, sometimes knocking, sometimes pretending to walk away, then his footsteps coming back. "He keeps saying he's sorry," she whispered. "Do you believe him?" "No." "Then don't open that door." A pause. "I should have left months ago." "No," I said. "You should have never been made to feel like you needed to." When I pulled into the Marathon station, the rain had thinned to drizzle. Derek stood near the entrance with his hands tucked in his jacket pockets, carrying himself like a man who wanted strangers to read him as reasonable. When he spotted my truck, that smile stretched wider. I climbed out slowly. My knee complained the moment it took my weight. "Mr. Coyle," he said, walking toward me. "I appreciate you coming out. This is really just a misunderstanding between me and Claire." I looked past him toward the restroom hallway, then brought my eyes back to his. "Not anymore." His smile tightened just barely. "Sir, couples argue." "They do. Maybe you could talk her into coming out." "No." He blinked, like the word hadn't computed. "No. No." The bathroom door swung open behind him. Claire stepped out slowly, mascara tracked beneath her eyes, holding nothing but her purse. For one terrible second, she looked exactly like the little girl who used to wake from bad dreams and pad barefoot down our hallway looking for me. She saw me, and everything she'd been holding together gave way. She crossed the lot in 3 quick steps and put both arms around me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You have nothing to be sorry for." Derek took 1 step forward. Claire flinched at the sound of his shoe on wet pavement. I shifted, so I stood between them. "You'll regret this," he said, low enough that only I caught it. "It's not too late," I told him, and opened the passenger door of my truck. "Get in, sweetheart." She got in without looking back. Derek stayed where he was in the rain. No yelling, no threats, no move to follow. He just watched us go. Somehow that unsettled me more than shouting would have. Halfway home, Claire finally spoke. "I thought I could fix him." "You can't fix someone who doesn't think he's broken." She turned toward the window. "I didn't tell you because I was embarrassed." "I know. I thought you'd think I was stupid." I reached across the console and squeezed her hand. "You made it out. That's what matters tonight." When we turned onto my crushed stone driveway, the porch light was still glowing through the drizzle. Claire managed a faint smile. "Mom always left it on." She did. The moment we stepped onto the porch, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She'd already opened it before I could stop her. "You just signed your family's death warrant." She went still. I took the phone gently from her hand and stood there several seconds, just staring at those words. Then I looked up at the porch light Maggie had asked me never to turn off. The rain kept falling. Somewhere out in that darkness, Derek Voss already believed fear was his to hand out. He had no idea how long patience had been mine to keep. By morning, the rain had pushed east, leaving the yard smelling of wet clay. Claire slept in the guest room. I didn't sleep much at all. I sat at the kitchen table with my reading glasses low on my nose, her phone beside my coffee, and a yellow legal pad in front of me. 31 years of report writing doesn't retire just because a man does. I wrote down the time she called, the name of the gas station, the exact wording of the message, every detail I could pin down before memory started softening the edges. At 6:15, Claire came in wearing one of Maggie's old Clemson sweatshirts, sleeves pulled down over her hands. "You kept that." It was in the hall closet. She sat across from me. Neither of us spoke for a while. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a mockingbird carried on like it owned the county. Finally, her eyes landed on the legal pad. "You're writing it down." "Yes. I don't want this to turn into some big thing." I set my glasses down. "Sweetheart, a man sent you a death threat." Her face tightened. "I know what he sent." Then it already became something. She looked away, and that's when I saw shame settle over her. Not exactly fear, something quieter and heavier, the kind that makes a person apologize for the hurt done to them. I hated Derek for that more than for the message itself. "You didn't start like this," she said. "They never do." She ran her thumb along the rim of her mug. "At first he was sweet, maybe too sweet. Brought me lunch. Remembered things I'd only mentioned once. He made me feel seen." I nodded. That part mattered. Men like Derek didn't begin with a locked bathroom door. They began with flowers and remembered coffee orders, with just enough warmth to make the cruelty, when it finally came, feel like weather passing through. "He said my friends were jealous," she went on. "Then he said Renee was a bad influence. Then he said my coworkers didn't respect me. Then he wanted my passwords, because couples shouldn't have secrets." She let out a small, bitter laugh. "I teach 8-year-olds how to spot unhealthy relationships, Dad. And I still missed it." "No," I said. "You didn't miss it." He moved the line 1 inch at a time. That made her cry. Not loudly, just 2 tears she wiped away fast. "He checked my bank account," she said. "Not every day, just often enough that I knew he could." I sat still. There are moments a father wants to come apart. But if you do that too soon, your child stops telling you the truth. "I know men like Derek," I said finally. She looked up. "What do you mean?" I took a breath. "I was a U.S. Marshal for 31 years. The kitchen went very quiet. "I thought you worked courthouse security," she said. "Sometimes. Prisoner transport, too. You never told me." "Your mother knew. Mom knew." Claire dropped back in her chair. "This whole time, I didn't want that kind of work following me home to the dinner table." She looked wounded, almost betrayed, and I understood it. Even a grown daughter doesn't take kindly to finding a whole hidden room in a parent she thought she knew completely. "Did you go up against men like him?" she asked. "Yes." The word came out heavier than I meant it to. Men like Derek aren't after love. What they want is control. And when that control starts to slip, they dress it up as being wronged. Her phone buzzed again on the table. We both looked. Unknown number. A photograph loaded. Claire's school parking lot. Shot from across the street. Her face drained. The caption, "Pretty easy place to find." She shoved back from the table so fast the chair shrieked. "I can't go to work." "Yes, you can." "That, no." "He knows where." She caught herself. "You'll go back when it's safe. Right now, we focus on making it safe." Before 9 that morning, I had Deputy Nathan Reyes standing in my driveway. I'd known Nathan 20 years, since he was a rail-thin kid with a jumpy smile fresh out of the academy. Now he had a wife, 2 teenage boys, and the kind of patience that gets worn smooth by years of watching people make the same mistakes. He scrolled through Claire's phone, jaw tight. "I'm taking this seriously," he said. "Figured you would." He looked up at me. "But I won't cut corners on your account either, Ray. I'd be let down if you asked me to." "I'm not asking you to." Nathan turned to Claire, voice gentler now. "Miss Coyle, keep everything. No replies, nothing deleted. If he shows up here, you dial 911. If he shows up at your school, someone there dials 911. Understood. She nodded. He glanced toward the porch. You got cameras out here? Not nearly enough. Well, he said, that's something worth fixing today. By noon, Frank had pulled in with his battered Ford, toolbox rattling in the bed, 2 folding chairs, and a bag of barbecue sandwiches from a place in Pelzer he insisted beat anything in Greenville. Heard we got ourselves a stakeout, he said. Brought lunch. Claire smiled for the first time since the night before. Small thing. I held on to it. A few minutes later, Dee Pruitt came through the side gate from next door, retired after 20-some years dispatching 911 calls. The sort of woman who could hear somebody starting to fall apart before they'd said 2 full words. Side gate needs a camera, she told Frank before she'd even said hello. That oak gives a blind spot after dark. Frank shot me a look. She run every job like this. Every single time, I said. That's why I'm still standing here to say it. Dee answered, already moving toward the gate. For a couple hours, my yard turned into a low-key operation. Frank mounted cameras. Dee checked sightlines from her phone. I walked the property edge, figuring out where headlights would wash across the driveway and where a man could plant himself in shadow and feel hidden. Claire fell in a step beside me at one point. You really think he'll come out here? I think he wants you lying awake, wondering if he will. That's not the same as an answer. No, I agreed. But it's the honest one. Come evening, we settled on the porch with sandwiches on paper plates. Frank told a story from 1994 about dropping a transmission on his boot and trying to convince an army doctor he could shake it off. Dee laughed out loud. Claire very nearly did. Derek's shadow didn't reach us out there. But the dark came in, the porch light clicked on automatic, and the laughter faded some. The following morning, I pulled the front door open just past sunrise. Thin, cold mist sat over the grass. Nothing looked off at first. Then the light caught something on the top step. Small and silver. My gut knew before the rest of me caught up. I went down on one knee slowly. A necklace. Thin silver chain, small round pendant. The clasp snapped clean through. I recognized at the moment I touched it. From behind me, Claire said, Dad. I turned. She saw what was in my hand. Every bit of color left her face. Derek had been on my porch. No shouting, no knocking, no attempt at a scene. Just near enough to set something down and let the silence do the talking. I closed my fist around that broken chain. A bully's method isn't complicated. He pushes at a line, then stand back to see who's too frightened to push back. By 8 that morning, Dee had the porch footage open on her laptop at my kitchen table. There, Dee's finger hit pause. Grainy, black and white, but legible. At 2:13 that morning, a dark sedan had crept past the driveway, vanished around the block, then reappeared without its lights on. A figure got out near the mailbox. Crossed the yard the way a person moves when they've already walked the ground in their head. Claire made a small sound. You don't have to keep watching, Dee said. Yes, I do. The figure climbed the steps, set something beside the door, and stopped. For nearly 10 seconds he stood in the wash of the porch light, face aimed at my front door, as if he needed us to find the recording and know he'd stood there. Then he walked back to his car. Frank stopped chewing. Well, that's not somebody trying to patch things up with his girlfriend. No, I said. That's somebody turning up the heat. Claire looked at me. What does that mean? It means he's counting on fear to bring you back before he's forced to escalate. She lowered herself into a chair. Ray, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Dee asked. I'm thinking this isn't the first time he's run this playbook. Claire looked between us. You can't know that. No, I said. But men built like Derek Voss don't usually work this out for the first time on their first try. I spent the rest of the morning doing what people picture retired lawmen doing in some cinematic way, when the reality looks like a man sitting still with reading material. Public records, court filings, prior addresses, civil actions. At 11:40, a name surfaced. Renee Sutter. A protective order petition filed 4 years back and later dismissed. I pulled the address history. Derek's name showed up 2 streets over from Renee's old apartment during that same stretch. Nothing that would hold up anywhere, but plenty to justify a question. He still had contact from her dispatcher years. By late afternoon, we had a phone number Renee had once used for a small cleaning business she'd run out her car. I texted first. 3 minutes passed, then 5, then the phone buzzed. Is she safe right now? I typed back, yes. She's with me. The reply came almost at once. Meet tomorrow. Not at my place. Blue Ridge Diner in Gaffney. 10 a.m., bring another woman. I don't sit down with men I don't know alone. The Blue Ridge Diner sat wedged between a tire shop and a storefront full of cabin rental brochures, smelling of bacon grease and coffee. Renee Sutter walked in 7 minutes late. Slender, early 40s, worn-out eyes, a green raincoat buttoned to the collar. Which one is Claire? Claire lifted her hand slightly. Renee studied her a moment. Something in her face shifted. Not pity. Recognition. She settled into the booth. Did he take your phone yet? Claire's eyes filled. He tried. He's extraordinary at the beginning, Renee said. Makes you feel like someone was actually built to understand you. Then he starts in on your life. Your clothes. Your friends. The way you carry yourself. Did he tell you that you were too sensitive? Claire let out a short, broken laugh. Constantly. Did he ever suggest your dad had too much influence over you? Claire looked up. Yes. He always needed someone to cast as the problem. She told us Derek had run the same pattern with her. Gifts first, then apologies, then tears and promises, followed by isolation, then threats. When she finally moved to leave, he started telling people she was unstable. I filed for protection, she said. Then I pulled it back. Why? He sent me a photograph of my dog in my own backyard. Then one of my mother walking up the steps in a church. Renee gave a smile with no warmth in it. Exactly. Renee reached across and laid her hand over Claire's. You're not crazy, she said. That's the first thing you need to hear. I turned and looked out at the traffic passing beyond the diner window and felt something go cold and quiet in my chest. Derek Voss wasn't angry in any ordinary way. He was methodical, practiced. That night, he came past my house again. Slow, deliberate. His headlights crossed Claire's bedroom window and lingered a beat too long. I stood in the dark of my living room. Every old reflex wanted me out there. But that was exactly the reaction he was after. Something to clip. Something to show a witness who'd only arrived for the last 10 seconds. So I held where I was. I understood the shape of what he was building. He was out there constructing a story about a dangerous old man come after him unprovoked. He wanted my temper to show itself first. So I sat down and saved another video file. At 11:18, Claire's phone lit up. A video clip, her, earlier that same day, crying beside her car. Underneath it, she still needs me. Tomorrow I'm coming to bring her home. I looked toward the porch. The light was on. Then let him come, I said. Let him meet everybody. The following evening, every light on that porch was burning before the sun finished going down. Not as a statement. Simply so every camera had what it needed to see clearly. Frank hauled 2 folding chairs out of the garage. You know, he said, when I retired, I thought excitement was finding a decent price on motor oil. Life had other ideas. It usually does. Claire came out carrying a tray of sweet tea, looking somewhat better than the day before, but only somewhat. You don't have to be out here, I told her. I know. Her voice was soft. I've spent 2 years hiding indoors. That one stayed with me. She handed Frank a glass. He smiled. Your daddy and I are too old to chase anyone down. Claire almost laughed. Good. So, if anybody does show up, Frank went on, we'll make him walk to us. At 7:42, Deputy Nathan Reyes rolled into the neighborhood. He left his car half a block off. You armed? He asked, walking up. My coffee's still warm. He nodded. I'll take that as a no. He looked around the yard. Good setup. Wasn't built in an afternoon. He glanced at Claire. If he sets foot on the property after being asked to leave, say it out loud and clearly. Understood. Understood. And don't touch him. I won't. At 8:16, headlights came around the end of the street. A dark sedan. Claire went rigid. I saw it before she said anything. You can go inside if you want. She watched the car creep up the block, then looked at me. I am staying. The sedan stopped at the driveway, engine running. Nobody stepped out for close to 30 seconds. Then Derek Voss came out onto the pavement, clean jeans, button-down shirt, that same unhurried smile from the gas station. His phone was already raised, held up, and steady. Evening, he called out. Nobody answered. He walked toward the porch at an easy pace, still smiling, still filming. Claire. No reply. I just came to talk. Frankly, my way. Funny. Every man who opens with, "I just want to talk," usually means everyone else does the listening. Derek reached the bottom step, angled his phone to pull all of us in a frame. "Look at this," he said loudly toward the camera. Her father actually put together an ambush. Nobody moved. He laughed, quiet and easy. "I've never seen so many retirees in 1 yard." Frank raised a hand. "So, I've been through a knee replacement that frightened me more than you do." Derek's focus came back to me. "Mr. Coyle, you've been telling lies about me." "No, you've been reaching out to people." "Yes, trying to ruin my name." I held his gaze. "No, I've been gathering facts." Something crossed his face, brief and gone. Then the smile came back. "Claire," his voice dropped softer, "you know this isn't who your dad really is." Claire rose from her chair, knees unsteady, but her voice held. "You need to leave." Derek paid her no attention. He turned back to me. "You're the one making her afraid." "No," I said. "She was already afraid." Silence. "You don't know what happened between us."